Once upon a time, in a quiet town where the hills met the sea, there stood a grand mansion, tall white pillars, glass windows shining like mirrors, and gardens blooming with roses that never seemed to fade. It belonged to the Graysons, one of the wealthiest families in town. In that same town, beyond the hill where the marble road ended, there lived a girl named Raha, barefoot, gentle, and full of dreams. She lived with her widowed mother in a small clay house surrounded by wildflowers. Raha didn't have much, but she had something more precious than wealth, a heart that saw beauty in everything. Every morning, Raha would walk down the long road carrying a basket of fresh flowers to sell at the market. She sang softly to herself, her voice like a breeze, and though life was hard, she smiled as if every sunrise was a gift. Jack Grayson first saw her one such morning. He was sitting in his car, waiting for his chauffeur to fix a tire, when he heard that soft, lilting tune. Turning his head, he saw a girl walking by, her scarf fluttering in the wind, her hands holding a basket of daisies. She didn't notice him, but in that fleeting moment, something stirred in him, a strange warmth he couldn't explain. The next day, he went back to the same spot, pretending his car had broken down again. And there she was, humming the same melody, sunlight dancing in her hair. This time, he spoke. "Your flowers are beautiful," he said. She smiled shyly. "They bloom better when someone looks at them kindly," she replied. He bought every flower she had that day, and the next day, and the one after that. Slowly, their morning conversations grew longer. Raha would tell him about her mother, about the meadow behind her house, about the stars she liked to count at night. Jack would listen, fascinated. Her words made him see a world far beyond the marble walls of his mansion. But love, as gentle as it begins, always faces the test of reality. When Jack told his family about Raha, his father laughed. "A flower seller?" he scoffed. "You're a Grayson. You have a reputation, a legacy. Don't throw it away for a village girl." Jack tried to explain how Raha's kindness made him feel alive, how her laughter healed parts of him that money never could. But the mansion's walls had heard too many arguments and too few truths. His father forbade him to see her again. Heartbroken but determined, Jack drove to the meadow where Raha lived. When he told her everything, her eyes filled with tears, not for herself, but for him. "Jack," she whispered, "love should never make you choose between peace and pain." But he took her hand and said, "If love is true, it's worth every battle." For weeks, they met in secret, beneath the old oak tree, where fireflies danced and dreams felt real. Raha would bring him tea in little clay cups, and Jack would tell her stories of places he'd seen. Then one day, the news spread. The Graysons were leaving town. Jack's father had arranged his engagement to a wealthy heiress abroad. Raha stood in her doorway, silent, as Jack came running through the rain, his clothes soaked, his eyes desperate. "Raha, come with me," he pleaded. "I can't live without you." She hesitated, her heart torn between love and fear. "Your world and mine, they don't belong together," she said softly. He took her face in his hands. "Then let's build a new world, one that belongs only to us." And that's exactly what they did. That night, under the moonlight, they fled the town. They married quietly at a small chapel by the sea, with only the waves and stars as witnesses. Raha wore a simple white dress she had stitched herself, and Jack slipped a silver ring on her finger, one he had bought with his own savings, not his family's fortune. Life wasn't easy after that. They rented a small house by the harbor, where Jack worked at a shipping company and Raha continued to sell flowers. There were days when money ran short, when the storms were rough, when loneliness crept in. But there was never a day without love. Jack would often say, "When I come home and see you smiling, Raha, it feels richer than any mansion." Years passed, and one morning, a letter arrived from Jack's father. He had fallen ill. His pride had softened with age and regret. In shaky handwriting he wrote, "If your love has lasted through poverty, it is truer than any wealth I've ever known. Come home, my son." When Jack returned to the mansion, Raha walked beside him, no longer the poor flower girl, but the woman who had taught him what love truly meant. The servants greeted her with respect. The house that once looked down on her now opened its doors with warmth. And when Jack's father saw Raha, he took her hands in his and whispered, "Forgive an old man's blindness." Raha smiled. "Love teaches forgiveness, sir," she said gently. In the years that followed, the mansion became a home again, filled with laughter, music, and flowers blooming in every corner. Raha planted daisies in the garden, the same kind she once sold in the market, and they became the mansion's pride. As the sunlight touched the petals, Jack would say, "See, Raha, even the flowers remember where we began." And she would smile, her heart full, because she knew real love doesn't come from wealth or beauty. It comes from hearts that choose each other, again and again, even when the world says they shouldn't.